Hello. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you again. Oakley and I had so much fun doing the Unlearning series with you in July that over our break, we decided to regroup and come back to you as the Oakley and Omar Zoomcast, really with the intention of creating a space for breakthrough, because it's really about us coming together. And when we can come together, we can push what limits us. And so there's Oakley. Hi, Oakley.
Hi, Omar. Sorry about that. We had a technical difficulty moment.
This is the joy of doing
Uh,
live show here. And, I think that's really over the course of the break, we just realized that we have this beautiful opportunity to create a fresh format, right? Like, this isn't sort of behind the radio and you can't see what's going on. This isn't a podcast where it's not interactive, or YouTube that's recorded in some other time. This is happening right now because this is what we think is just so important in the world right now, is just people coming together and showing up and being a part of a space. There are followers, there's no audience. This is about engaging in the moment, which kind of can only do live. And even if it's in a digital way, we think that's important. And so as Oakley and I talked about kicking off the new Oakley and Omar Zoomcast, we thought what better way than to talk about vision. And when Oakley first joined me back in, I think, March or April for the first time, she came and talked about her North Star and the practice of finding your North Star. And I think so that's what this series is going to be about this month, is vision, but we want it to be very real. And as we talked about what real meant for us, I remember a friend of mine telling me that there's this Buddhist tradition that upon receiving a beautiful vase, they would slap it. And the reason that they would slap the vase is because they wanted to really test it and reveal any of the hidden fractures that might already be there. Just because it's beautiful and pretty does not mean that there aren't points of weakness. And it's better to reveal them, to really know what you are working with, than to just keep the pretty facade. And so by us being live with you every week, it's making Oakley and I be real about who we are. And hopefully in doing so, that invites you to be in this present moment and as real as possible. So did I get that right, Oakley?
yeah, you nailed that, Omar. This is so amazing. And I'm gonna riff off the slapping of the vase right now as we move forward, because that happened to me this summer, as I can imagine it's happened to many of us in the last 6 months, right? And I had a vision this year, and we're going to get deep into vision right now because I really geek out on it. And I think the concept was really introduced to me by one of my coaches years and years ago, maybe 7 years or more, in a really specific way. And he said to me, he said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere. And I noticed for myself that I kept working really hard and creating cool things, and then would wake up and be like, somewhere, but not necessarily where I thought I would be, and certainly not all the time where I thought I wanted to be, right? And just with a tiny adjustment, just a little chiropractic nudge, I shifted that to start landing where I felt really proud to be, and I felt really grateful to be. Um, and that came through creating what I call North Star, which is vision work in a bigger context, right? And the vision work is all about picking your state of being and really committing to it no matter what. And from that state of being, seeing through your heart and through your mind's eye, through your imagination, what you would love your day-to-day life to look like, how you want to interact with people, all of that. So I had been doing this work really vigilantly for the last 7 years at least, right? And I would do this work on my birthday. There was just something about this fresh start for me. And I would do this work on New Year's. I would kind of check in, and then I'd have benchmarks, to check in along the way. And of course, Christmas and the holidays, Christmas for me, holidays came around last year. And I took my time and went into my room with my journal and just really dropped in for a little while and felt into, am I on track? And what have I accomplished in this last year? And where do I want to go? And at the time, I had a private practice physical office space, a beautiful little wellness center that I had built in Denver, Colorado, that I loved, that the tenants who rented from me loved, and that our clients really did kind of like gain more of an experience than just going to therapy to an office. It was really curated in a really intentional way so that people had an experience just by being in the waiting room. And we built this, and the holidays were upon us, and I thought to myself, it's been a long time in this domain of psychotherapy, 17 plus years on and off. And I'm starting to see how people work a little bit, especially my population, which was young adults, kind of kids in their 20s. And I thought, all right, it's time to really work on a book. And it's time to talk about some of this stuff, some of these taboo topics, sex, money, enlightenment, all of these things. And I really had this year mapped out, just like so many of us. And and things changed, obviously, right? And you would think, well, you're in quarantine, you can finally write a book, but that was not the case. I was pivoting out of the physical office space. I was getting everyone online, all my clients. And I was finally getting rest for the first time in a long time in a new way, for like many of us did. And so here came the summer, right? The summer was upon us. And I'm thinking my vase is pretty good. It's pretty sealed up, can hold a lot of water. It's got capacity. And the universe came along and just went whack, the beautiful Buddhist monk, to see where the cracks were. And this is what we intend to take ourselves to the next level. And we got a whack. And this whack occurred in a very, very surprisingly accelerated decline in the health of my fiance's parents. And very shortly after that, we left for Maine, which is where I am now, to go tend to supporting the situation. And I had to switch modes and be really present in a way outside of myself that I hadn't been planning on. And there were cracks because suddenly I thought to myself, well, I'm not building the curriculum, and I promised this book, and I'm not working on it. And little did I know, it's only September, and I can already look back, and I almost get emotional talking about this. I can already look back and say, wow, that was a moment where I was still on track toward my North Star. It was just a trough in the peak and valleys of the journey it takes to fulfilling our vision. And in that time, I was actually in the process of becoming even more of the person I wanted to be. And I talked to one of my best friends several weeks ago, and I said, wow, this is tough. I'm really present with my fiance, and I'm really present with the family. And I'm just not putting my attention to the things I thought I was going to get done this summer. And she said, I just have to tell you something. You have become so much more patient in the last 6 months and these last 2 months, and so much more compassionate and generous. And she just flooded me with this reflection that really, that's why I just feel emotional. It was so generous, and it really knocked me back into that chiropractic place in alignment, where I remembered my crack there was trust, Oakley, trust the process. And so I got to patch up that little crack of non-trust, that little crack that thinks it's all on me, right? And so in that trough, I was learning, and now I get to come up. And there will be other ones, and that's okay. But to remember that on our way toward our North Star vision, we are becoming the person that we're dreaming to become. That's the point of the North Star. It's not just we land there and we've achieved all the things. It's that we've become the person we can be proud of. We can become that change in our relationships. We can become that new attitude.
What I love
Right.
about the North Star as a reference point, as opposed to the summit of a mountain, is that the North Star isn't actually a destination. It's a compass point to help you orient to where you're trying to go, as opposed to a summit. A summit doesn't move and you're sort of trying to move towards it. The North Star is like, okay, what is that guiding light that is my reference point to help me see where I'm going? And I remember using the analogy of vision through the idea of being a sailboat. And when you're in a sailboat on a journey, one, when you're sailing, you never go straight forward. You tack left and right, you catch the wind, and it actually moves you forward at an angle. But the other thing is, and Oakley talked about the sort of peaks and troughs of a wave. And when you're at the trough of a wave, you can't actually see the horizon line, but you know it's there. And then there's the peak, and you're like, okay, yeah, there it is. And I think that to me is the balance. And I think one of the things specific to this Zoomcast and building it with you all here, which by the way, so grateful that you are here, that we didn't go away for a month and Oakley and I came back. We're like, ta-da, we're going to talk to each other today. Is that, keeping it real, is that this isn't just our own individual journey. Part of what we're trying to create with our Zoomcast is the accountability of doing it together, right? And by us showing up each week, and it's these micro practices that help us balance between where are we trying to go and how do we just be present to where we are. And I think one of the most important ways that we do is that we remember that we're not alone. That's one of the big sort of slaps to the face this year, is people realize what it means to be together and what does it mean to be apart. And for us, and the world that Oakley and I want to live in and be a part of is really about helping us be our best selves together. And that's, to me, like even the practice of gratitude. It's gratitude to me is the practice of how we hold ourselves accountable to the people in our lives. We either show up and say thank you for the people in our lives, or we don't. And I think that to me is part of the space that we're trying to create.
It really is that togetherness that I love that you've mentioned there, Omar. I think I've been taken into a deeper experience of that these last 6 months and this summer, and I feel grateful for that. I feel almost proud of it. Isn't that funny? Like, we are so interconnected, and it matters so much that we know that. So on that note, is there anyone, we'd love to hear from somebody today. Is there anybody who has a vision for themselves, sort of a North Star, where you want to head, where you want to get to, that you're afraid to claim? We need a volunteer in this moment or moving forward. Omar, what do you have to add to that?
I think part of it is, the afraid to claim part is so like when we first talked about this question of like, well, what if somebody shared a vision? But when you added that, but you're afraid to claim, it just sort of shifted everything. Because it's one thing to have it as
Mm.
an idea of a vision that's safe. But when you're afraid to claim it, that means it really is a vision, because a vision actually does not yet exist, right? If you can kind of own it already, then it's probably, it may not be big enough, right? Like if you can be like, oh, I can do that for sure, I'm going to knock that one out of the park. Maybe it's a bigger park that you need to like create for yourself. And so I think hearing from folks, and I think what Oakley, and I are inviting you to is, let's have a conversation about that. And this is really in a safe container that we can create together here, right? And so this is not about judging. This is not about a vision that's right or wrong. This is about being able to claim, and in that moment of claiming something, we become both more vulnerable and courageous.
And open the door for others to claim whatever they are afraid of. So, who
So,
do we
so
have
folks
on
can
deck today?
yeah,
Is there
share
anyone who
the
wants to
chat
share?
or take off mute. Trisha, you want to share? I see your hand raising.
Oh, I'm always one to share. No worries. Always willing to share.
Beautiful.
My vision is starting to come to fruition. Excuse me, I probably need a sip of water, but I I've I've since we last had our session, um, I took Reiki healing class through the internet over online on a Zoomcast, and now I'm a Reiki healer in
Wow.
just a baby one yet to be, and so yes, definitely being able to reach potential to be independent.
Maybe if Oakley
Say
or,
that last part again.
and
Oh,
also what is Reiki, for not everybody may know what Reiki is. So
oh, Reiki healing is an ancient form of healing that's used with energy, with that source energy, upper dimensional source energy, founded in Japan. It went underground around the time of World War II, when when and it was only verbal. It was only used as a verbally taught, and it was a secret, kind of more of a secret society. Now it's become more commonplace. Common is it's an assistance, since we're here in the West and it's Western. We think Western medicine. It's more of an Eastern type medicine, and so it complements Western medicine. It does no harm. Reiki healing can do no harm. Positive energy, good vibes only. So working towards being
It's
more
beautiful.
independent. That's my goal. That seems unobtainable, but yet it within grasp.
I
Tell
love that.
me what it means to
Oh,
be
go ahead.
more independent to you, Trisha.
Financially, a little more, and to be able, it rained, to be able to be more self-sufficient and be able to afford things
Beautiful.
that I need and also want. It was a month ago.
Excellent.
Last
And
month oh, sorry, go ahead, Oakley, go ahead.
okay, when you think about being financially independent, what does it make you feel? I want to hear about the feeling that you can embody. Let's pretend that you've achieved it. You're financially independent. You can afford things. You can buy what you wish. You can take care of yourself in the way you wish. What do you feel?
proud, joyful, thankful, healed.
Beautiful.
I feel healing happening.
Excellent. Excellent. So this is the key to North Star creation, is now moving forward. You put forth this vision of embodying joy, embodying peace, being healed, all of the feelings, but only just pick two so your brain can focus.
Yeah.
And then commit yourself to creating that within every day.
I've been working on that, doing meditation daily, a minimum of 3 times a day. And I start in the morning with a quiet personal meditation. And I also am part of group meditations, and working on finishing my Reiki healing so I can receive that certificate.
One of the things I love about what you've shared, Oakley and Trisha, and Trisha, you're talking about some of the practices of meditation. I was just listening to this author, James Finley, last night, and he was talking about the balance between method and attitude. And it's an interesting balance because method helps give us a practice, something to do, but attitude is about claiming what doesn't yet exist but can still be real for you. And in fact, it's somewhat harder. And I like to call it the method of no method. Attitude is the method of no method. So when you can, and I love, and I'm only hearing it now, and Oakley probably already teed this up, and I'm just sort of like getting it now. But you know, when she asked the question, does anyone have a vision that they're afraid to claim? And then the first thing she talks about is claiming the emotion that you're seeking. And what's powerful to me is that you can claim that emotion today without even actually achieving any of those things. So we can achieve the feeling of pride, the feeling of joy can be ours now. And so if those feelings are what we're trying to claim, then the vision is actually not so far off from
No. Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's within reach. It's really it's just within that grasp.
It's beautiful.
It's like stepping out this morning and seeing the morning glories climbing up the tree. I'll post it onto gthx later.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trisha, for jumping in with that vision piece. And you know, when we think about these things, they're also Maslow's needs of hierarchy.
Yes.
And so part of what we're having to then do is really think about what our needs are in any given moment. I've been watching with my family this summer a series on the History Channel called Alone. And essentially it's 10 survivors that get dropped off in the wilderness, no camera crews. They have to film everything themselves. And I think it was like, I started with season 2 and it was in Patagonia. And these 10 people aren't anywhere near each other. And what's fascinating about watching the show is that once they figure out how to get water, which they're always by a fresh water, body water, but so then they need to create fire to clean the water and stay warm. Then they build a shelter, and then they have to hunt for food. And they're only given like 10 pieces of survival equipment to like go hunt. And so like fishing hooks or axes or what have you. And what's fascinating about this show is that once those fundamental needs are met, it's a mind game from there. And in fact, there's this, and I'm going to do a little bit of spoiler alert. So if you want to watch the Alone series, the spoiler alert here. But there's this one guy who has 2 weeks of fish smoked and stored. And he's pulled from the game because he had been starving himself. So he had his need in place, and yet was trying to play this long game. He's like, I'm going to hoard all this food so I can be here for a very long time. And in the midst of it, he starves himself. And so I think, part of why Oakley and I wanted to have this conversation today, and the balance between vision as something in the future versus who are we now, it's a mind game of really being present to what we need, yet figuring out what we need moving forward. And to me, this fundamental tension between freedom and security, right? I'm a son of a geographer, and so I love geography. And there's this Chinese American, Yifu Tuan, who says, place is security, space is freedom. We cling to the former and long for the latter. So we attach ourselves to the things that we think give us security, yet in our heart of hearts, we know it's actually the space to be free. And when I hear Oakley telling us today, is a lot of that space is just the emotional freedom that we can claim that has nothing to do with a lot of the sort of material or extrinsic things. Because in that Maslow's need of hierarchy, most of us are fortunate to have a roof over our head. We're on an internet access, or we have a digital device. So we're in a place where we have some of the basic material needs being met. And now it's an emotional, mental game.
So the reason also that the emotional state comes before anything else is because it sets the tone in our nervous system and in our mind. And the tone that's going on in the mind and the nervous system is what either allows us to move into an expanded creation state or contracted fear-based survival state. And we have one or the other. That's it. The universe is very simple. It's either expansion or it's contraction. Expansion or contraction. It's just two things, right? And so if we're in a contracted state, our whole system is designed to go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and focus on food, shelter, water, belonging. Right? If we are outside in this expanded state, then we can start to manifest, begin to tune into the creative capacity that we are as these energy beings. Sound, light, and vibration here, right? Like we're made of millions of cells that all have intelligence. That's amazing to me. So it matters what state we're in, whether we're in a fear-based contracted state when we create or an expanded love-based state. Because when we're in an expanded love-based state, then we can begin to attune to the creation that our bodies are vibrating at. And we can create new things. We can create new ideas. We can listen differently. So that's why state is everything, everything, everything.
And are we going to go through one exercise quickly, Oakley, or we're going to, there's a task at hand, right? For this month, because for this month, there's 4 Thursdays in September, and we're going to use this to name and claim our emotional state. So the invitation right now, and I would invite you to use the chat if you know the emotional state that you already are trying to claim. Please share it in the chat. And what we're going to try to do each week is really hold ourselves to how well are we naming and claiming that emotional state for this month of September. And I have an additional request. I'm going to use facilitator's prerogative here. Is I want you to name and claim one thing for yourself and one thing for this Zoomcast for Oakley and myself. Because I think, again, this is about the vision is not just for you, but it's about for what we're building. And you really are the foundation for that. So that's my invitation and request.
Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to just, not minutes, seconds, to just tap into that emotional state that you want to commit yourself to this month, right? So this month, what's the emotional state for you and for this Zoomcast? And then I'm going to guide you into learning how to turn that on in the nervous system. So just drop in, feel that space.
I remember when I was in AmeriCorps right after college, and it's basically like the domestic Peace Corps, and I was working up in East Palo Alto. But every week we got a trainer to come in, and I'll never forget this trainer who said the only way that we're held accountable for our dreams is by sharing them. And so this moment, we know that it is not a small ask for you to share an emotional state that you want to claim, but it is the most powerful way to actually experience it, is to name it, and not just name it for yourself, but actually to share it with others. Amanda, thank you. Abundant mindset, losing a scarcity mindset. Yes, being unselfish. What is the name for this emotion? Well, good thing we have a psychotherapist on this show. Maybe Oakley can help us name what that is. What is that emotion, Oakley?
It's so good. I'm typing in right now. So Amanda, what you want to ask yourself, I love your questions. Once I embody an abundance mindset and I feel generous, how do you feel inside? Does it make you feel joyful, like love? What's the emotion that comes up when you feel abundant? And abundance can be an emotion, but that's a tricky advanced emotion, I think, sometimes. So how would you feel if you were really embodying this new way of being? Satisfied, peaceful, powerful, content?
I think we might have.
That's nice, Trisha.
Yeah, joy and compassion. It also
Did we lose Amanda?
Patience for Zoomcast, curiosity. Yay! All right, we got a Zoomcast vision, curiosity. Thank you. That's beautiful. Curiosity, grit, and gratitude. Those are the three things that I go by. So that's beautiful. And also just going back to what Amanda's comment, I think that just always reminds me of Brene Brown's quote that the opposite of scarcity isn't abundance. The opposite of scarcity is enough. And so, Amanda, if you're still with us, what does enough mean for you?
I think my desire to have this emotion was triggered by something I experienced today. It's just like I feel like I do have enough, but it's hard to like let it sink in because of like past trauma when I feel like I didn't have enough and I had to be selfish and I had to be like mine, but I don't feel that way anymore and my life doesn't reflect that. But I don't know how to lose that attitude and embrace like the things that I believe right now. So it's kind of like having like PTSD almost.
Let the past right now just exist as the past, just for right now. And trusting that you are in full abundance. There's enough for you and there's enough for everyone else. How do you feel inside?
I feel like my mind just got a little more relaxed. Like I actually felt physically like my mind relaxed and there was more space. And I didn't have to, think so hard about like how to provide for myself.
That's it. So I would call that peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I would start with abundance, tying abundance with peace for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And got one more from Trisha for the Zoom is the reach to infinity, and I think that's what we talked about is space for breakthrough is when we can break through then that's when we are unbounded, that we are boundless, and that is the infinite. And that to me, is really, I did, as Oakley knows, I spent a fair amount of August writing. And there was this one moment where when I look at sort of what's happening around the world, it does feel a little bit like we're on the Titanic and there's the iceberg. We've got everything from protests to pandemic and climate change. And what I don't want to do is just reshuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic, right? Like, this is not about trying to miss the iceberg, but how do we actually turn this ship not into an airplane? Can we turn this ship into a butterfly? And the only way that we can turn this ship into a butterfly is by changing our consciousness, because our consciousness is actually not bound by physical shapes. And Oakley helping us sort of connect at the emotional level is that first step into that change in consciousness, is to be able to change and transform our emotions, because our emotions are fluttering around like butterflies. If I've learned anything through the practice of gratitude, is that emotions come and go, they zip and zap. And so what does that mean to really let them be transformed? So just as we wrap up, Oakley, any last sort of practices or tips as we lean into the rest of September?
Yeah, thank you, guys. So here it is. So it's a really simple 2-minute practice for everybody. And I do it daily. I tried to incorporate it in my morning meditation practice. And what I invite us all to do between this Thursday and next Thursday. So we're really going to just take things in small chunks together as a community. Between now and then, take 2 minutes every morning and put your focus on your chosen word: peace, joy, patience, okay? And I want you to visualize, use your imagination, totally use your imagination. Visualize whatever you need to create in your mind to evoke that feeling inside. So right now, just close your eyes for one moment and focus on your quality, your word. And if it's joy or peace, remember a time in your life where you felt this quality, or create a scenario in your mind where you start to feel this. So if you haven't felt joy in a really long time, you're allowed to create a fabricated scenario of being on the beach or playing with puppies, like whatever you need to create, or living in a totally peaceful world. Whatever you need to create, tell your mind to create it and evoke that feeling so that it runs through your blood. Right? And then from that state, just let it fill you. Let that energetic state fill your physical body, and just breathe in that energetic state that you've created for 60 seconds. And that's the homework between now and Thursday, if you choose.
I love it. I think
we'll build on it.
My emotion is going to be generosity. And the mental image, I'm going to have my daughters say that sprinkles are distant cousins of unicorns. And so I'm going to have the image of sprinkles and unicorns to get me going each morning to claim generosity. I want to just also say thank you to Lisa for sharing about trust, and really for Zoom creating the space for non-judgment, and how do we do that honestly. I love that, because that's so important, because part of what holds us back between that contraction and that expansion is fear. And fear, by and large, is really driven by judgment. And so how we get to a place of non-judgment to allow ourselves the courage to claim our vision, to claim our emotions, is fundamental to what we're trying to create here. And so I love everybody joining us today. I can't wait to see you next week on September 10th. And having you wake up each morning, and I hope somebody thinks about sprinkles besides just myself. And please, to help us grow this community, you know, I think we're on YouTube. Please forward the emails as we send them out each week to people who you think will appreciate the space that we're creating. And then subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I think we're also going to be working towards getting this on a podcast. And then we've also brought in some more friends. And so we have Brian Vasquez, who is our audio engineer. We have Jen Rosenthal, who's coming on to help produce this with us. And so the Oakley and Omar Zoomcast, we have big hopes for this. And it really, we are doing this with you. This isn't for you. This is with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. I can't wait to see you next week. Stick with the homework. Things should come up, and just bring them next week. If something gets in the way, bring it. This is a space for breakthrough, and we're going to clear things and be little popcorn kernels for this month and just keep popping together. Can't wait.
Thank you, everybody. So excited to be back, and more good things to come. Cheers.